Good evening. This meeting of the Romulus Board of Education is called to order at 6:02 p.m. Could I please have roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. McLaughlin. Mrs. Bowles.
Here.
Mrs. Kraut. Here. Mrs. Funderburg.
Here.
Mrs. Buckley.
Here.
Mrs. Beard's here. Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Mr. Theed excused.
Yes. If we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. With that, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. A motion would be in order.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Support.
It's been moved by Ms. Buckley, supported by Ms. Kraut. Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries. Next, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the review of superintendent candidates. We'll turn it over to Marie Miller from our MASB consultant. Just want to remind board members, whenever we're referring to candidates, and Marie will go through this, please use the numbers that were on your cover sheet. Do not refer to any candidate by name in open session. With that, Ms. Miller, it's all yours.
Thank you. It may be a little bit difficult, and so we'll slow in. If there's anything that will end up being a violation of the privacy of candidates, I'll stop you if that's okay, and we'll kind of regroup. If you also can refrain from actually naming school districts within the application process, also that would be helpful. Sometimes that's not always. You're not always able to do that, but to the ability that we can. I'd like to just take the opportunity to do a quick summary of the applications that you received. Actually, you received a number that was a little bit higher than we anticipated. We had 18 applications. So that's a good number for these times, because as we had talked about at the beginning of the search, that superintendent pool is getting thinner and shallower, so I think that you got a good mix of applications. There were 18 applicants. 2 of those, and do the summary for the community, 2 of those are out of state, although more than 2 of the applicants have out of state experience, but 2 are currently out of state, and 1 internal applicant. With that thought, and going back to the criteria that the board had set originally, 8 of the applicants have doctorates. 4 have doctorates in progress at varying stages, so about 12 of them were at that level. The others varied from ed specialists and master's degrees. It's a diverse group of applicants, from sitting superintendents to superintendents who have retired and who are currently working in other positions, to even classroom teachers. So you had the full gamut of candidates. Candidates also range from experience in very large urban districts to very small rural districts. And with right now, when I went through it, I believe 7 have superintendent or interim superintendent experience. And just to kind of go to a note, about 3 of them did not meet the requirements, all of the requirements. Now, again, you can consider those but just, for the record, candidate number 2 had no administrative experience per his application, and only 1 letter of recommendation. And remember, there was a requirement of 3. Candidate number 7. Candidate number 7 had 2 letters of recommendation in the file. And candidate number 14. Had 2 letters of recommendation also. So that, and it was again, when I looked at, and I'm sure that as board members, when you looked at the profile match, all of the candidates at least had a 50% match with the district. But again, want to make sure that everybody understands that candidates have 2 options. One, that may be their profile that they set originally when they're going to look for a superintendent's position, and they never touch it again. And sometimes some candidates will go through and update their profile with every application they put in. So, it's what they're looking for at that time. So even though they may have a lower percentage match, that may still, it depends on what the qualifications were that you were looking at when that averages out. I did some background checking, and in some cases, and that's true with education right now, that people move positions rather quickly. So in some of the letters of experience, the people may not be, letters of recommendation, they may not currently be in the positions that they were when they wrote that letter of application. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to contact. I only contacted references that were listed, so that it didn't go beyond that. Again, so that we kept that confidential until we decide whether or not the candidates are candidates that you want to explore further. I think that pretty much rounds out the information in terms of summarizing it. One of the things, and I want to just review again the process that we'll go through. You've had about 10 days of looking at and reading the volumes of information, so there's a lot of information. And you'll recall that I asked each board member to try and select or narrow your personal search down to the top 6 choices, okay? If you're comfortable with the process, what I'd like to do is just go through and ask you to indicate what your top 6 choices are by number, and we'll see where it falls out before we even begin to discuss candidates. Once we go through that first round, we'll narrow it down to a second round. But once we go through the first round, then I'll invite you to discuss the candidates. One reason we do that is if all, if a vast majority, in fact, if all of the board members look at an application and say that you don't want to consider that person going any further, then there's no need to actually discuss that. So that will kind of narrow that. Before we go any further, though, I just want to make sure that we cover everything, because one of the jobs of MASB and my servant from then is to make sure that we keep the board within all of the realm of the legal issues that you have. So, based on some of the information that I read in the applications, I just wanted to make sure that and ask the question, if any board members have any personal knowledge, relationship, friends, friend of a friend, or interactions with any of the candidates, obviously except for the internal, because it would be expected that there would be an interaction with the internal candidate, because that's a person who's employed by the district, or solicited any applications from any of these applicants. If so, this would be the time to disclose that. Not that it's illegal, not that there's anything wrong with that, but in the essence of transparency, we need to put that up front, just so that if there's some ties, because again, some of these candidates have been around for a while, so they could have, you could have had an experience with them. So just to declare that whether that there is, potential conflict of interest or not. And this is standard practice. Nothing? Okay. None was declared, and that's part of the record. Okay, are we ready?
Ready as we'll ever be.
Any questions for me before we start with the process or anything?
I did have one question. Is it customary to, for candidates not to have copies of like their diplomas and there's a couple of the packets I noticed that they're, other than just a transcript, that was it.
The only thing we ask for at this point of the applicants is a transcript. And on the transcript, it should say what the degree is, so that's actually, these are unofficial transcripts.
Right.
Prior to employing or considering employing, the board should request an official transcript. Some of the candidates supplied much more information than, was basically needed. I mean, they gave all of their professional development, transcripts of all of that. So it's customary not to have the diplomas. Good
Okay.
question, though.
You just want us to tell you just the numbers, right? And
Yes, just
you
numbers.
don't necessarily want us to tell you
Why?
what we liked and all of that, right?
Not
now.
yet.
Okay.
Correct. Okay.
And are you just gonna go like with candidate one and see how many people do it, or do we wanna, have each board member? I would think it'd be quicker to say candidate one, who thinks candidate one should move forward and things like that, unless, otherwise if we go through 1 through 18 for each one of us,
Say go through each packet.
just go each packet at a time, is that how you
We
wanna do it?
can do that. We can do that. The other option is to ask each board member to give their top 6.
Okay.
So whichever you're more comfortable
I
with.
don't have 6, but okay.
I mean, up to 6. It doesn't have to
Are
be
board
6.
members prepared to give their top
6, or do
numbers,
you want to
would
go
you rather go by packet and say yes or no?
It might be
Whichever
quicker.
one works.
It doesn't
by
matter.
packet?
I think if we go by
Okay.
packet, it'll be cleaner and.
Okay. I'm not sure I can turn this down because you're okay? Okay, let's start with candidate 1.
Start from you.
Okay, so what you're looking for is what we'll just do a show of hands, that you would like to consider them going further.
State I say no.
Candidate 1. Next.
Okay. Candidate 2,
No hands.
candidate 3.
I got one, I got a maybe by her.
4. Candidate 4,
Nope.
candidate 5. If I'm going too fast, slow me down.
Maybe.
Candidate 6.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
It was a maybe.
I got a maybe.
I did. Yeah, 6 of them.
I got a maybe.
Okay. If it's a maybe, let's for right now do it as a yes, because we're gonna narrow this down again. rather than
Okay.
no.
All right.
So a yes or a maybe
I say a maybe.
on candidate 6.
I say
1,
maybe.
2, 3, 4.
Maybe.
Candidate 7. Candidate 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Candidate 9. Candidate 10. 3.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a maybe on number 10, I'm sorry.
4. Candidate 11.
I'm a maybe.
I'm a maybe too.
Okay.
I'm a maybe too.
I'm a maybe too.
Okay, let's go candidate 11, because I think I lost a show of hands. 1, 2,
I'm a
stop
maybe.
at 3,
Maybe.
4, 5. Candidate 12.
wait, that's mine.
We'll go through it one more time, see if there's anything else. Oh, candidate 13. Candidate 14. Candidate 15. Candidate 16. Candidate 17. Candidate 18. One. Okay. With the board's, just general, you don't have to vote, but general consensus, are you comfortable with me eliminating candidates 1, 2, 4, and 5 in consideration right now? You can always bring it back to the table based on the comments so far. So 1, 2, 4, and 5. Okay. Candidate 7, you take off right now. In other words, anything that doesn't have any mark at all. Candidate 13. Candidate 14. Candidate 16. Candidate 17. Okay, you've reduced your pool to half. With that in mind, we're gonna do same thing again with just these numbers though, because now, again, what I'm gonna ask you to vote for no more than 5. Okay, so we're gonna narrow it a little bit. You had an option of up to 6 before, your top 5 candidates.
I was gonna say, can you give us probably, I
You
think,
want the top 6?
that, or I think board members might want a couple minutes to review their
yeah,
notes
yeah.
before we go
Let me-
through the next
yeah.
cycle,
Yeah, give me a second.
if you can do that.
You want the top 5?
Are you comfortable with top 5? My question to you is, let me back it up a little bit then first. When, in considering interviewing candidates, okay, my recommendation would be that you would narrow the pool to 6 strong candidates, no more than 6 candidates. So that's why I usually go to 5, because that will kind of push where the strength of candidates are. But if you want to do the top 6 again, we can do that. Why would you top 6?
Well, do we have 36 up there?
Mark?
10, yep.
Mm-hmm. Close. But when some are eliminated, because some of those were maybes, so now we're gonna force some of the maybes out.
Gotcha.
That's what we're looking for, is now your maybes are gonna go.
14.
Okay, so we'll take a couple minutes and review our notes.
It might also be helpful if you have a whole stack of applications, if you take those other ones out of the pack and just put them to the side, because you won't be looking at those anymore right now.
I am sorry.
I gotta come up with 6.
it okay if we only have 5?
We've only got 4.
It's a maximum of, so if you can narrow your personal search down, again, you always have the opportunity to go back and change that, through the process.
Pick her, maybe.
I have mine narrowed.
I got it.
I got 4 maybe.
I got 4. I got 5 possibly, but. Like I said, if they don't have some experience,
That's what I,
it's a deal breaker for me.
I was looking at one of the doctorates too.
Okay, as you're reviewing the candidates, I
two
think
and
what
a
I
maybe.
failed to say earlier, and just to make sure that the board is clear, on the profiles, the candidates had the salary range they were looking for. And any candidate who exceeded the salary range that the board was, had set at the beginning of the search, I contacted, asked if they, and told them what the parameters were. Were they still interested in the position, with the salary? And in some cases, it was a few $1,000s difference. In some cases, it was several $1,000s difference. But
That was tactful.
but all of them replied yes, that they were still interested. So I either spoke to them personally or had emails back from them. So
And
that's
Marie,
why I
the posting did not include the salary range,
Correct.
correct?
That's correct. However, if a candidate had contacted me and asked me, I told them what the expected salary range would be.
Exactly, but some of them probably,
Did
we
not.
could presume, based on what's on the transparency report.
Correct.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
again, some of them may not have changed it when they originally did their, 'cause a few years ago, salaries were a little bit better than.
Yeah, the market was a little. Is everybody ready to go, start with the next round?
I can't say.
Okay. Let's
Ms.
go.
Bolt, everybody's ready? Okay, we'll start with candidate 3 this time.
Let's see, yes.
Candidate 6,
Yeah, I am still.
So maybe.
candidate 8,
I'm a maybe.
candidate 9, candidate 10, 3, candidate 11,
That's the one I was, that's the one.
Maybe.
candidate 12, candidate 15,
That's why I changed my mind.
candidate 18. changed a little bit. So just as I'm kind of keeping my own notes here. Candidate 15 now has no one, or no vote, so I'm going to eliminate that if that's met with no objection. So we narrowed it a little bit. Candidate 3 basically stayed the same. Candidate 6 went down. Candidate 8 went up. 9 stayed the same. 10 stayed, nope, 10 went down. 11 went down. 12 stayed the same. 18 stayed the same. So there's some movement. What I'd like to do is talk about candidates 9 and 18. So if we pull those. So I'd like to eliminate 9 and 18 if that meets with the approval of the board, because right now, but if there's something that, like to share with the board to ask them to look at, again, please don't get into personal information.
You start with 9?
9.
You don't have to say why you're not, basically at this point, because it's skewed to the point of not in favor. There's only one vote of the existing pool, so it's
Okay.
like to, you don't have to.
I don't mind.
Okay. No,
I
it's
just want to
up
make
you.
sure I don't say
Oh,
nothing I'm not supposed to say.
right.
That's what I'm thinking. Like, okay.
If you're in any danger, I'll probably pop in and stop you before you go. And I mean, it's just basically if there's something you think that what makes that person a strong candidate that you'd like to make sure that your fellow board members, didn't miss,
Okay.
then that's kind of where you're going. You want to stay with the positives in all
Okay.
of these,
Okay.
positive attributes, as opposed to negatives if you can.
When I looked at this particular candidate and some of the others, I tried to look at the gaps that I saw in the district as a whole and how they could fill that gap. When I looked at the history of this person,
Are you on 9?
on 9,
Okay.
I saw that they had teaching experience. I saw that they had some administrative experience as well too, and I'm looking at their past positions area. I also saw in the back where they had educational computer technician experience, and I felt like due to our situation in our district in regards to some of the positions that we've had to do away with because we couldn't afford it. This person I felt like is a person where we getting 2 skills for the price of 1. Actually a couple skills, but technically 2 of them that I can see that we're in need of right now. They had the information in regards to superintendent. They are well-rounded in being a leader. And then I also felt like in the technician area as well, due to making sure that we up on our current technology in our district and being able to give us advice on the resources that we have and what resources we need to review or renew in the technology area versus the ones that we can still utilize with what we already have. And they would be a great person that we can go to with that because they are a technician, which means that they deal with all kind of software, hardware, even having some experience in the networking field as well too.
The only thing that I would point out is the technician experience in this particular individual is from 1991 through 1993. So I would dare say that those skills might be a little outdated unless there's something in here that I'm not seeing that shows that he has refreshed those particular skills. So,
And it could have been, but I do feel like there are certain things that don't change in the technology field. And so because of those things that I know personally from experience that don't change, as in being a technology or being in the IT field, it's just like you said before, a possibility where they can continue to add to the skills that they have.
With that thought, there's something that someone else wants to bring up, feel free to do that. But what I'd ask now, is there anyone who wants to say, you know what, given this additional consideration, you would trade one of your other choices for this one, because that's what it comes down to, or that you want to consider this give this one further consideration.
So by a show of hands, who wants to proceed with number 9, or?
Can I ask Marie to verify something? Was this one of the candidates that you said had superintendent experience?
See, for me, that's a deal.
Number 9?
That's just me, personally.
No, highest experience was that of a building principal.
That was my first thing.
Just wanted to verify.
Let me do one quick look, just to make sure, but I'm pretty,
And I would just add with this particular candidate, he has a lot of other positions with a lot of different entities, and I would wonder if his time would be properly allocated to our priority here. If you look under his present positions, you know, he lists 6 other things that are rather demanding on time.
I also see his certifications as well that he have too in the central office and the teaching area listed on here. And I do see that this particular person was also a professor as well too. So he's highly educated, definitely, and he's definitely well-rounded.
Yes,
and because he's well-rounded,
right.
he's in every aspect, whether it's in the office, whether it's in the teaching area, you know, whether it's in the IT area, which is someone that we really are eventually going to have some sort of advice on, someone that have had that type of experience to work with some of the employees that we do have currently still working within our district as a whole, to be able to figure out where we're going to be able to, what we're going to be able to do with the resources that we have because of the situation that we're in.
Right, you're correct, that does have certification, central office. You don't have to have experience in a position to hold certification, just so that, you know, a candidate could have a superintendent's certification, but not have experience in that. So when I talked about the, you know, experience, I'm talking about actually sitting in the seat, you know, at least having had that, so.
I mean, I would just say that we have a deficit budget. We are looking for a particular person, for me, I'm looking for someone with expertise there.
Okay, so let me go back. Is there, and I think we were at the point, unless there's more discussion about this, whether or not board members want to basically pursue this candidate, if the majority of the board members present want to pursue this candidate further. If you would like to pursue this candidate further, please raise your hand.
I would. I'd like to find out more information in regards to what he has in his other background areas, in the technology area as well too. It could have been because he's applying for this particular position, he only focused on making sure those particular information was updated.
Well, unfortunately,
Yeah.
you're the only
Right.
only one. So,
Right.
yeah, we will not be moving forward with number 9.
So I'm gonna eliminate, so let's look at 18, because that only had one. Also, take a couple minutes to review that application.
Marie, can I ask you one question?
I mean, yes, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I don't know how to ask this. I mean, I do, but recognizing I don't want to divulge things here.
What?
Who's the current superintendent at Detroit? Do we know?
I don't know. If you're asking if,
It's my understanding there isn't one.
that's my understanding. As of March 28th, I believe. So again, some of I think you're looking at letters of recommendation, those would have been prior to March 28th. So that's why I said some things change.
Yeah, March 27th, to be exact. Thank you, because that just kind of jumped out at me.
Marie, is there okay, in positions, if you say superintendent, assistant superintendent, deputy superintendent, what's the difference between?
A deputy and assistant. In some cases, there is none. In large districts, very often you'll have assistant superintendents, deputy superintendents are below the superintendent. And this candidate, from what I could look at in the application, in terms of paid position, and experience as an employee was a building administrator. The work as above that, the central office was done pro bono. So, and sometimes, let me go through two. Sometimes an executive director is the equivalent of a building administrator. Sometimes an executive director is a central office position. Sometimes an executive director in some charters is actually the equivalent of a superintendent if it's a one building district, basically, and with a charter school. So the titles are a little are difficult to say that it fits into one category or another when you look at just the title. So you have to also look at the position and, the information about the, whether it was a public school and not a public school, whether it was a small district, large district.
Was this one of the candidates, Marie, that you were able to check any references on?
In terms of, I spoke to one of the references that wrote the letter, and basically they said the same thing that they said in the letter. There was not much more detail.
I guess what my question would be, in your experience as a consultant, is it the norm, the anticipated practice that a candidate for a superintendency would have a post office box as their street address?
It hasn't been my experience, but I can't say that, there's nothing illegal about that, so
Yeah, and I don't want to give anyone the thing that I think that there's something illegal, but, in his letter of interest to us, he's telling us he's been a member of a certain community, but his mailing address is nowhere near that community. And to me, that's problematic.
at the level of, when, in the first screening, I didn't even consider looking into that, to be honest. I was looking more for credentials and experience, and I did, let me make sure. Okay, this was one I actually contacted regarding the salary. So, and did speak to this so I spoke to this candidate personally. in terms of what, they had a question. So, candidate was interested, obviously, they applied, so they were very interested in, the district, and that's one, and it's, the information is in the application in terms of what kind of experience they've had. So I think they disclosed that.
Do I see only 2 letters of recommendation? I mean, I must be looking for something wrong.
I thought I don't have it marked, so if you did, I missed it, so I apologize.
I just see the 2 in the back.
That's all I saw, one too.
Computer that we can access.
Part of the problem is these packets aren't all in the same.
In and out in same order. 2. Your 2.
I only see 2 plus his letter of interest.
Do we have access to a computer? Can I go, I'll look up to make sure.
Sure.
That was one of my notes I had.
It's a shame we don't have anything else on the agenda we could take care of while we were.
Good thing.
Actually, you could do the kindergarten roundup announcements if you wanted to while we're waiting for her to.
Okay, while we're waiting for Marie to come back, I just want, since we're taping this, we had a meeting with our early childhood committee today, and we have a couple of very important dates. The first one is this Saturday, April 20th at the Romulus Athletic Center. It's Motor Moms and Dads, and it's open, it's free preschool activities, and it's open to children age 5 and under. It's a free preschool activity for children 5 and under, and this is to work on their motor skills. And Nancy Sorensen, who's been an educator for more than 30 years and has trained thousands of parents across the country to be successful motor moms and dads. Author of Motor Skills for Academic Success, she will help parents understand the importance of motor skill development and share activities to ensure that preschoolers have the motor skills they need for a successful school experience. Join us for a fun-filled interactive workshop and leave with great ideas for home. And this is Saturday at the Romulus Athletic Center, 35765 North Line Road, and it's from 1 to 2. And your child has to be accompanied by a parent or a guardian. So if you would like to come, please RSVP by calling Romulus Community Schools, 734-532-1993, or the Romulus Athletic Center, too, I'm sure will take your calls. Yes, Sue?
Ms. Buckley, can we just mention that you do not have to be a member of the RAC in order to attend?
Okay, good point. And you do not have to be a member of the Romulus Athletic Center to attend this event. So please, anyone that's listening, to bring your children. All the board members, I encourage you that anybody, if you know anybody that has children 5 and under, to have them go and get some ideas on how they can perfect their motor skills for academic success. And we also have our other announcement is we have a kindergarten roundup and open house, and that is on April 24th between 1 and 8 p.m. and it will be at Corey Elementary School, 35200 Smith Road. So come out, experience the excellence of Romulus Community Schools. And there will be a lot of opportunities will be available to your child. They can learn about school readiness and Romulus full day kindergarten program and curriculum, meet the elementary school principals, teachers, and support staff, participate in interactive readiness activities with our highly qualified instructional team, lead with tips and activities specific to preparing your child for kindergarten. And if you could RSVP by calling the Romulus Community Schools again, District Office 734-532-1993. So we can round up all our kindergartners, okay?
Another
Thank you.
announcement is tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the high school auditorium is the this year's induction for National Honor Society, just to remind folks. And that will be well attended, I'm sure. You ready?
Yes, I apologize. The
No, you're
packets
fine.
packets are complete. They're complete. There were only 2 letters of recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, getting back with candidate number 18 then. Are there board members that want to proceed with candidate number 18? If so, please raise your hand.
I have a question. In regards to the letters of recommendation, was that a requirement stating that it had to be 3?
Yes.
It had to be 3. It was a requirement, and they knew that ahead of time.
Posted on the website right at the beginning of all, yes.
Okay.
But again, just for, a point of clarification, the application requires 3. That doesn't mean the board couldn't consider an applicant with only two. Okay, you always have that ability to.
Well, I do like the background information on this person, in regards to, I'm looking at it how, once again, I'm always looking at how well-rounded and how they fit into our program. I looked at their professional experience area, and I saw that they have been to, it looks like a middle school. They've had experience at an alternative middle school, an elementary area as well. They've also looked at, it looked as if they had also been a teacher at one time, and also worked very closely with the board at one time. So with that, I once again, I'm always looking at how we can maneuver people around if we need to, based upon where the weak areas may be, and it may need to be, the gaps may need to be filled.
And the candidate, from what I could glean from the resume and the information, had 18 years as building building principal, 9 years as a classroom teacher at the varied levels, and then your brief period of time as a pro bono deputy superintendent.
My only issue with this professional experience is most of these are one-year placements. And that's, that could be a symptom of
I think that's
the
probably the nature of the
employment.
beast for that.
Yeah,
that's,
but,
we
it
can't help
just,
that.
Okay, who wants to move forward with number 18?
And I want to trade.
Okay, so that's another one
I want to
eliminated.
trade.
Eliminate number 18, and we've narrowed the pool to 6. However, there's some pretty wide gaps between the support, and I think there were still a lot of maybes. Looking at what board, basically what board kind of consensus has been to this degree, we go through this one more time, and I'm going to ask you to only say, yes, you want to go forward if it is a strong, if you strongly want, you would consider the person for the position of superintendent to lead Romulus schools. So if you're in a maybe situation, let's pull the maybes out this time and see what happens with the pool, and then we can always look at these candidates again, okay? Take a few minutes and looking at 3, 6, 8, 10, 11, and 12 candidate numbers. Are any of those maybes on your list?
Yes.
At this point, what I don't want to do, or don't want you to do, is to rank order the, don't rank order.
Do you just want us to just tell you if it's a maybe
I mean,
now,
I'll
or?
come back through and
Okay.
we'll do a count again.
She said 3, 6, 8.
3, 6, 8, 10, 11, and 12. Are the candidates. Are you asking how many votes? Is that what you were,
Well, I guess you lost me.
no. Okay, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through
What's the next step?
Okay, the next step is we're gonna go through the vote, basically the same
Okay.
round again. I'm gonna erase those numbers that are up there.
Okay.
And we're gonna go through, but this time, in some cases, the last round, it was, well, a maybe, or someone may have, gone to a number that's now no longer there, so they may say, okay, that number isn't
okay.
there, so do I wanna put my
Oh,
case
my.
somewhere else? And I'm gonna ask you to limit it to your to top 5.
Okay.
Okay, let me
Well, I got my
begin.
5 already.
Yep.
This one is kind of like
So if you can go through these, on a piece of paper there and just kind of pick 5, at most 5, doesn't have to be 5, but strong consideration based on the information in the packet that you'd like to know more information, but basically that you think that these people, candidates, could lead Romulus schools in the direction that you want to see it go.
We still reviewing our notes?
Okay. Guess I'm ready. We gotta have 5. I got 5.
And if there's someone that wants to argue that they want to vote for all 6, I'll entertain that also. Serve as your
I got
pleasure.
5 and it could actually maybe go to 4, but.
Take away your maybes.
Okay.
And again, it doesn't mean you've given them away forever. You can always come back and we'll entertain. But right now, your candidate pool is at 6. It's just that the support that they have going forward, there were quite a few maybes on some of those, so I want to make sure that you're comfortable. For a couple of reasons. You want to make sure that every candidate that you're inviting for an interview has an opportunity to actually serve as would have the opportunity to serve as
Can we
superintendent.
ask you a question about a candidate that's up there?
Mhm.
Number 6, did you verify his references? Their references?
Careful now.
I know.
Yes, one of the references, I was not able to contact because they're not in the position that, when, they were when they, wrote the letter of or the letter of recommendation. They have since left that position, and, the cell phone number wasn't, it wasn't their current.
That was my question, because the most,
I
I don't know, am I allowed to say this information? The dates are off?
That some of the dates are old, that there are some old letters of reference there, yes.
And that's leads into a question I had with number 6, actually, and, I mean, from my perspective, I wasn't going to address it because he's not one of the, I'm sorry, they are not one of the ones I was gonna say yes for. But one of the references is a several-year-old reference, and this letter writer has since written a letter of recommendation for another one of the candidates. Which leads me to wonder if this same recommendation would stay in place. Am I making my point?
I understand that,
But it
and
says
I
on here
can't,
it's
I
for
didn't,
different
I didn't
school
contact
Yeah.
the person who wrote the,
That's true. It does,
It
it
does
does
say-
refer
it's
to another
District.
school district in the letter. It's just, again, in talking to, I think what Mrs. Beard's point was, is, with the dates, you know, if somebody's applying for an executive position, I would think they would use current references.
When candidates contact
better
me,
shut
I
up
highly
before I
recommend
end
that
up
they
with
use
a
the most
problem.
current references. My standard is usually 2 years.
Especially in this field.
2 years, but what I also recommend is that they have current contact information for any reference, especially in the first round, because as, you know, search consultant, they can expect at least me to try and contact.
Okay.
Are we all ready?
Are we ready?
Yes.
Start with Bree. I guess I was gonna reverse it, but I don't wanna mix anybody up.
Don't reverse it, you get me all confused.
Okay, candidate number 3. Is that right?
Does it say 6?
Yeah.
It's all 6 of us.
We got you confused. Okay.
Yeah, that was a good save.
Candidate number 6.
We're not grouping, right?
Candidate 6. 1. Okay, so that,
Candidate 8. Candidate 10.
It's my swap.
Candidate 11.
oh, we dropped it. Well, I guess not.
That was my maybe.
That's a maybe. You told me.
And candidate 12. Now my question, okay, you're down to 2 that only have basically 1 in terms of going forward. If we take those 2 out, you have a pool of 4 candidates that you'd be interviewing. Are you comfortable with that?
Or you
Kind
don't-
of.
You don't think we should do the 6?
It's up to the board.
My 2 cents is,
You wanna do
why
it in
would we
order?
proceed with interviews on 1 and 11? I'm sorry, on 6 and 11, if there's only one person at this table?
Point well taken. I'm good.
I mean, and that's, what I'm
Point
trying
taken.
to do is highly encourage the board to only interview candidates who you truly are, you know, interested in, hearing more from.
Okay, good point.
And to say it in kind of a kind way, you know, not to waste a candidate's time either, if they're really kind
Me
of
too.
just a placeholder. I don't
Six
like
was
to bring
really a
somebody
maybe.
in as a placeholder.
Exactly.
You know,
Six
if-
was my maybe.
So, but if you feel strongly enough that you want to hear more from that candidate and would really consider them, then that's fine. But if it's to get to a 6th candidate, I'd say don't do that.
And I have no problem with eliminating number 6 that I voted for, because he was my maybe. The thing I liked was that he had already established a 5-year deficit elimination plan, and so he just,
That makes sense.
Okay, so we're eliminating 6 and 11?
Do you want,
Where'd you see that at there?
Where's the
Elimination
rubber?
not
plan.
6? You want to go
Yeah,
back to 6?
go back to 6 for a second. Where'd you see that at?
circle it.
Wait, that's on.
That was my maybe until.
Johnson District General Fund
Yeah.
budget.
Sandy, he was
I
my
would
maybe
vote for him.
because his
I like him.
references are so old.
I'd like to see what he got to offer.
I mean, it don't matter to me.
But he
Yeah,
was
I'd
my
like to-
maybe,
I'd like to
so.
see what he
my
like to
maybe,
offer.
too.
I wouldn't mind.
You said drop the maybe, so maybe drop the.
I did until I saw that.
Let's face it, Mount
That district is still in
Vernon
deficit?
School district.
So you know,
Just saying.
still in deficit.
Be nice to see what you have on.
Kid, I
Okay, what about?
But the other ones were stronger.
Okay.
See how
I think 11, we nixate 11.
really like that one through.
Well, who voted for 11?
Well, let's just put that rate out there on blast.
I mean,
Oh, no.
it was, I mean, we've been,
was one of
our
my
hands
maybes,
was
but I
up
don't know
here.
if I-
only one, I'm to be honest, I can't.
Oh, okay, I mean, somebody might want,
I wasn't
talk
keeping
about it.
track. I was keeping track
that
of the
was my
numbers.
maybe, but I'm not willing to swap it. That's what I'm saying. Just wondering.
Yes.
You feel strongly about, and
keep them
that's
up there. You
my
should've kept the other
question,
ones there.
strongly enough to convince the other board members.
Oh, that wasn't
Oh,
me.
you mean on 11?
Yeah,
It might have been me, because it was one of my maybes, but
It wasn't me.
I'm okay.
It was a maybe. No, I was just wanting to know who it was, that's all. Nobody gonna own up.
What basically. It was me, all right. From.
No, we'll call you out.
On all of these, in terms of 4 candidates that have strong support.
3, 10, 12. I'm comfortable with that.
Where are you, board members? I mean, do we want to go with these 4 and interview them, or do we want to discuss and see if we weed 1 or 2 more candidates out? I mean, what's your pleasure?
We're down to the 4.
We're down to 4.
And you
Person-
can-
yeah.
And
I thought
that's
4.
the question, is how many do you, of these, you know, how many do you want to interview? If you want to interview all 4, and feel strongly enough about the 4 that are left, then I would, you know, encourage you to interview 4. If you feel there's a candidate there that really is kind of your a fallback and you're not interested in hearing, you know, further from them, then I would encourage you not to interview that person. If you don't believe the person could be a good superintendent for you, don't invite anybody, I always tell people, don't invite people just to fill a slate. So make sure that they're candidates that you could, you know, because that's not fair to you, that's not fair to the candidate.
Can,
I think
A lot of it, and I will say, in terms of the candidates, it's about the match to the district. They they all met the qualifications.
Right, exactly.
You know, with the exception of the couple that we talked about. So the rest of them could all be superintendent. It's how well do they match what you're looking for. So that's the purpose of that interview, is to get a little bit of information to know
can I,
about them.
on candidate number 10? Oh, boy. You know, there's times I really hate the Open Meetings Act. Number 10. Yeah, I know.
When
you're ready to-
you preface with that, very honest, you make me nervous.
Yeah, I know, you're ready to
so-
press the
button, just in
the-
case.
Leave it alone.
the bleep button.
Okay, let's keep it to the positive.
Leave it alone.
Okay.
Leave it alone.
I had. The most recent employment experience with this particular candidate is the proprietor of a charter.
I got you.
Will never have my support. I don't want to waste this candidate's time. And that's as far as I'll go, so you don't have to worry about pressing the censor button. So,
How about number 10?
number 10.
Let me see.
Were they all at least 4 votes?
Yeah, that's it. So you can't,
But that was
Okay.
only 2 years.
you know,
Well,
you can't do one or
that's
the other.
where he left
Okay,
to do.
I think the candidates we had left up, 3, 8, 10, and 12 all had by consensus, because that was not a
Right.
vote, had a majority of the, because, we talked about that earlier, and I would highly recommend if someone did not carry at least 4 at this point, not to go any further with, even putting them on. So that's kind of the reason so they all had that and met that.
I personally would like to see if the candidates that we chose actually match up in person as well as they do, look as well in
The
person
4?
as they do in paper, because sometimes paper, it doesn't work that way.
That's true.
So,
Yeah,
That's
but
true.
You can make a paper say anything you wanted to say.
So you have 4. It's a good slate. What I would recommend is that you take any of the applications, hold those 4 out, because you're going to need those. If you'll take the others and kind of slide them to the front, I'll collect those so that, because again, those are on loan from MASB, they're MASB property. We will keep those in the event that you go through the interview and somewhere during the interview process, you decide as a board that you want to bring back another candidate, you still have that option. That would be a little bit unusual, but you still can do that, or if for some reason you go back to the pool.
So three.
So keep 3, 8, 10, and 12 right now. Pull those out so you kind of separate your applications.
Yeah, and then Anna will put them in a friendly little box and put them in Neverland. That way we won't have to kill any more trees. Oops, made a $sign instead of an ampersand.
Okay.
Okay.
The next step before we go too far in our planning, what we need to do is actually, I need the authority to contact the candidates to ask them if they're interested in interviewing for a position.
Yes, and that's
So
what
that would be a
this is about.
resolution.
Ladies, yes, I'm passing out, and what I did is, not knowing where this was going to go, how many candidates we were gonna end up with, Mrs. Basidas had a blank topic sheet made for us. I filled in the blanks with 3, 8, 10, and 12. I'm passing that out now, and then after everybody has these, a motion would be in order to invite these applicants to an interview. Before you make your motion, make sure Anna's ready, please.
Let me know when you're ready, Ann.
Oh, there was probably one for Mr. Thiede.
Yeah, it was an issue.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Buckley.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education invite applicants 3, 8, 10, and 12 to be interviewed for the position of Superintendent of Romulus Community Schools.
Support.
It's been moved by Ms. Buckley. Was that supported by Ms. Funderburg?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries 6-0.
Okay, I will be contacting the candidates this evening. I will get information to Mr. McLaughlin and also to the rest of the board that they have confirmed. But before I can contact them, I need to know what our interview schedule will be.
Thank you.
And let me kind of make sure that, again, we talked about this early in the search, just want to reiterate. I know it's the practice of the board to video meetings and to play those back soon thereafter. What I'm going to ask, it's perfectly fine to video the interviews. I will tell each candidate that the interview will be videoed. What I would ask, though, is that they not be aired until all of the interviews are completed.
That is absolutely correct.
Okay, so that assuming that we're going to do it on 2 days, is what kind of my assumption would be.
Yeah, and board members, some of you probably heard a little bit of discussion before the meeting started. Originally, our game plan was to start interviews on Monday, April 29th, and then continue them if necessary on Wednesday, May 1st, and Thursday, May 2nd. With recent developments, most namely our boys basketball winning the championship. The Romulus Rotary is sponsoring a recognition banquet for them on Monday, April 29th, and I am absolutely sure several members of the board will want to be there for that. So I've asked Marie if there was Miss Miller.
No, that's fine, Marie's
If
fine.
there's a problem with us starting the interviews on the 1st, and she advised no, because we advertised, to the applicants that they would be the week of, so we're still okay there. She had just asked that we not start them prior to 6 p.m., which we really weren't going to do
Right, on the-
anyway,
at least
because
the
we've got
first.
some difficulties with
1st.
some of us getting here at, prior to 6 p.m. meetings. So the interviews, I would say, would start on Wednesday, May 1st at 6 p.m. and 2 per night?
That's what I thought.
Okay, which would mean one would run from 6 to 7:30. And then the second interview would be 7:45 to 9:15. That allows the board members to have a stretch break in between to take care of anything that they may need to take care of. So 6 to 7:30, 7:45 to 9:15, May 1 and May 2.
That's correct.
Okay.
What's the second time? 7:45?
7:45.
7:45 to
9:15.
9:15.
And you'll confirm all this with
I
a
will,
nice little
and what
memo.
I basically, I'll share with the board, that I designed the questions so that the interview should get over within an hour and 15 minutes, really. With some candidates, it tends to run a little longer, so that's why I would go to the up to an hour and a half. Again, that process will be, it's the first interview, so therefore it will be very scripted. Board members will have the opportunity to submit to me. There are areas that I think I've heard them, finance, curriculum, some of the other issues that we've talked about, so I'll make sure that I craft those questions. In the handbook that I shared with you earlier, that you have electronic copies of, page 34 is the beginning of talking about the interview process. If you have not participated in a formal interview process before, highly recommend that you review that. But pages 36 through 39 have some sample questions. If you have the opportunity the next couple of days, if there are any of those questions that resonate with you, that you want me to make sure that, some form of that type of question is involved, shoot an email to me, and I'll make sure. By the end of the week, what I will do is send a draft of questions to the board. Once I don't hear anything back that someone is objecting to a question or that something is missing, I'll actually do a final draft of the questions. You'll get those ahead of time. Questions will be assigned to you as board members. So if you ask the first candidate the question, you'll ask every candidate thereafter the same question. And I set it up so that there are potential follow-up questions. In that interview process, for those in the audience, you'll have the opportunity to write written questions. We wait to those to the end because sometimes they're asked. If they're not, I'll scan them just to make sure that they legally can be asked. And then the board will then again, because that's again why we add that extra 15 minutes there. The community members will have the opportunity to speak in writing as to the strengths of a candidate and to whether that, there are areas that they would like further information either from the candidate or about the candidate if they were considered further. Those pieces of information are shared in writing. They have to be identified by the person who submits them. They come to the board and they become part of the formal board minutes, so they're part of the public record. But the comments are reviewed by the board as they sit at the table, but they're not commented upon. We will not discuss any candidate immediately after the interview. We wait to do the discussion to the very end. So in that 15 minutes, it truly is a break for the board and allows me to bring in the next candidate. So,
Marie, I just want to point out, just to make it abundantly clear, that the public comments that may be submitted to us in writing are of an advisory nature only. This board is not bound to act
Correct.
or to ask any specific question if
Correct.
we feel it's out of bounds.
Correct. Or if the board feels that they have enough information, don't have to ask that, exactly. But the point that I always caution members of the public, though, is that as they're writing their comments, they do become part of the public record. They can be FOIA'd, including by the candidate, and, if something is inflammatory, then candidates have rights of recourse. So again, just so
Now,
everyone
refresh our
understands that.
memory, Ms. Miller, on when, if at all, these names become public.
Okay. These names will become public once, as board president, you indicate that, yes, release them, but as soon as they accept an interview and I notify you of that, then they become public. So the information, and thank you for bringing, because that was where I was leading to the next. So in terms of the board members, I'm going to remind you again, and you're probably tired of listening, it's the teacher in me though, that the candidates that we have not selected cannot be ever made public in terms of, you can't, as people say, hey, well, who was candidate number 17 or who was candidate number 1? That information and anything about that, that's why I asked to, destroy your notes, to submit anything in paper that you have back, because that is the confidentiality. It's forever. So with that, and I just want to commend the board also that you've done a wonderful job. It is a tough job. You had, long applications and good applications to look at, so the board did its due diligence.
I have a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
For the public commenting, can they, if they wanted to submit a question before the meeting, like in advance, like a couple of days, can they do that here?
We normally don't do that.
Okay.
That's not normally the process.
Okay.
Because you may end up with many, many questions, so it basically, it's designed for those that come to the interviews to participate in the interview and yet not ask the question. It also gives the candidate the opportunity to speak directly in terms of answering the question to the person who asked it. So it's not that you may not want to consider that.
And will the general public, I'm sorry, sure.
No, go ahead.
Will they have, like a brief summary of that particular candidate's, qualifications? Or will we just be looking at that as board members? So like, for instance, more or less, the way they're engaging is only by hearing, having heard what the qualifications were, or the interviewing process, and then they will respond to.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's a yes. Let me back up.
Okay.
The first question in the interview, so it's not a secret because the candidates all know that, but the first question is, and I always phrase it in such a way that the board has read the resumes, has read your application, the public has not. Please give us a brief synopsis of your background. And that's their and they know that ahead of time, so that's their opportunity to talk about their experiences, anything they want to bring out to the board. So to give the board sometimes additional information, but to also bring the public up to speed in terms of their academic background, their experience background, and anything else they want to share, sometimes personal background.
These packets do not go public once they're, for the interview night. We don't hand out packets.
No, do not hand out packets.
That's
Sure.
kind of what
Once the candidates, the names are public, though, they can contact me and say they would like they would like the packet, and it does become public information.
Okay.
It's not that you
That's what
provide
I
it,
was
but
kind
they
of
It would
could,
be
trying to
subject to
find
the,
out
let's
what-
clarify, it would be subject to the normal rules and regulations
of
of
the
the FOIA.
district, yes. If they contact the
Because
district,
we're
yes.
not producing 200 pages
Right.
of documents.
One thing, I
I'm
just wanted
sorry.
to ask a question. The audience or our or public cannot directly ask the candidates questions. It has to come through the board, correct?
Correct.
So they need to understand that. They can't.
Yes. They will not have, there is no
They cannot
direct,
ask directly.
no. And the board doesn't even ask the questions directly until I've reviewed them. And there will be some, and very honestly, it's within the time constraints, because if a candidate gives long answers, and you have me there as the timekeeper, and some of them do.
They do.
And so if the candidate goes long, there won't be time for some of them to answer those questions. So we hold them if it's something that we don't haven't touched on. Very honestly, usually in the interview process, it's so exhaustive that we hit almost every question that anybody could think of to ask. So it's in some form or another. Sometimes we miss it, and that's why it's good to have those. But so if there's not enough time to ask the questions from the public, the board is under no obligation, and we don't go beyond that,
90 minutes.
90 minutes, thank you. And what I serve as the timekeeper as we're going along to make sure that we can keep it. So if there are candidates who tend, and especially, I'm going to be perfectly honest, if they have not interviewed in this type of forum before, it's tough to interview in public. It really is. So, so if they haven't, they may go long. Part of my job is to let them know and let the board know, okay, we are halfway through the interview time and we're on the first question.
I have a question. I would like to know, this will be my first time in this, and I would like to know in regards to the public, why are they not able to ask questions, since whoever this superintendent will be dealing with the public? This will be part of their family. So I would want to find out if there's someone in the public that has a question, why are they not able to ask it?
Didn't say that.
Or is it that they can ask the question, but it just has to be directed to you? I'm just a little confused on how it goes.
Let's back up a little bit. At the very beginning, the board decided, and it is the board's function to hire the superintendent. Okay, so basically, it's your obligation as representatives of the community to ask any questions. You have the opportunity to submit those questions ahead of time, and then but again, if in 90 minutes, there are only so many questions you can ask. So in terms of allowing additional, and the community had the opportunity to basically tell what kind of information they were looking for, and that's the purpose of the community meetings, okay, to kind of glean that, because the questions as they are crafted are based around the criteria that the board said, the information that comes out from the board and from the community in that whole process. That's the reason for that process. In terms of, and very honestly, sometimes there are a room full of people for the interviews. Sometimes there's nobody there. Right. Sometimes there's 250 people, and if all 250 people have a question that they want answered, there's not going to be time to answer that question. Right. So basically, it will depend. If there's, so anybody who is here will have the opportunity to submit a question.
Okay.
If the questions can be legally asked,
right,
okay, then they'll be put in let's say a stack of legally asked questions to be asked. If there are 200 questions that come in from the group that is, that's looking for the information, what I will do, because there's not going to be time to ask 200 questions, I will group those or try and summarize them in some way so that they get to the gist of what the information is.
Okay.
But as I said, I think when you see the question, and if you look at even the sample questions, now you can't pick every question that's in that sample because I think we give about 200 possible questions. So I try to narrow that down, but there are questions that are asked in pretty much every aspect of the position a superintendent would have to hold, that they should be prepared for that in that first interview. So as I said, I think my experience has been in the searches that I've done and also the other search consultants that we hit probably 90% of what people, very rarely, because we give the experience, sometimes someone will say they want more information about something. But pretty much, but in terms of giving everybody the opportunity, that,
No, I
Okay.
didn't mean everybody the opportunity, but I was just under the impression that you were saying that the public wouldn't have any
won't-
time. And I was saying to myself, I know when
they
we
won't-
did the superintendent's intended search, that it was such a small crowd that showed up. So I was thinking, okay, well, I just want to make sure that they do have the opportunity once again when we do the interviews, if possible, if they do have a question, there is the possibility that they can get an answer to whatever their question
Right.
is, because whoever the superintendent is, they're going to be dealing with the public.
right. But in this format, they'll submit what I was
Okay.
trying to say is they're submitting the question in writing. They're not actually
Okay.
going to come to the
Okay.
podium and say, I have a question.
Okay.
And the
I
same
have a-
question will have to be asked of all the candidates.
No.
Right.
No?
No.
It does not. Only if only if the person wants the information. So at that point, the public's questions are not necessarily asked of each candidate. That's the difference.
Can it be that way, or is that just the way the process is? Because in that case, it's not it's not fair if one person is
Exactly.
asked one
Somebody could come in
particular
and bias.
question and somebody else is not. You want to see how each candidate would answer that particular question.
No.
To be able to
Okay,
give you
no.
an idea of what's
Okay.
going on.
You as a board member may choose that.
Right, that's what I
However,
mean.
but and I can tell you, having been in a number of situations, people have come in and asked questions of only, they've submitted questions for only one candidate. That's all they wanted to know. Some have submitted the question, they've submitted the same question of every candidate, that they've sat through all 4 interviews or 6 interviews or how many interviews they were, and they were. But at that point, the questions that come from the public are from the public, so they determine who they want that question asked. So that's why it's
a little different.
it's different, and that's why it's limited. The other reason that we do not allow people to come, to ask the question without seeing it first is to make sure that it can legally be asked. For example, I had a search where someone asked what the person's religious affiliation was. You legally cannot do that. So that's, And I talked to the person and said, I understand, but you can't ask that question.
I understand.
Marie,
Okay.
I just had a comment. Going through this process before, that 90 minutes, you're gonna need every bit of 90 minutes, and you're probably not gonna have a whole lot of time
No.
for anybody to ask anything, because you wanna make sure you get all your questions answered, but they use every bit of that. A lot of times we even, try not to go over,
But
but
you do.
usually it's every bit of that time.
Sometimes you don't get that 15-minute break. You
Right.
might get a 5-minute in between, or you get a couple of minutes because they use the extra 15 minutes. But I'll try and keep them on target. But candidates will, and what the candidates know going forward is that first question, basically. And beyond that, they know that they will have, and I try and tell them ahead of time, you're going to have about 24 questions, or how many ever questions the board comes up with. And they can do the math and figure out how much information, so they have to be succinct and direct, and and they have to think while they're doing that too. So it's exhaustive for the candidates, but then the superintendent's position is an exhaustive one, so it's good training. But I think when you see the questions, and again, I will submit the questions to the board. You'll see the final copy prior to the meeting. Please do not share those with anyone, prior to coming to the meeting, to the first interview. But it's important that you look at the draft. If you think I have missed an area that you want covered, by all means, send that email to me, and then I'll reformat. Sometimes I'll take 2 or 3 things and ask in one way or in one scenario to try and get as much information. So if there's an area, and you can tell me now, if there's an area that you think that I'm not aware, that you want to know more information. For example, I think that it's probably going to be important to ask the candidates, their background in technology, because I've heard that, that's a concern. So they're not the same questions from from interview to interview, from district to district. They're crafted for, what I've heard. So that's why I'm going to try and do it before the end of the week, a draft to you, so that you're comfortable that I've covered
Mrs.
everything.
Beard had a question.
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate kind of what you just said, and then I have another second question. So basically, you're going to come up with the questions, we're going to get the draft, we get to look over it, and then anything we want to add, then we email that to you, and if it is okay, then it gets put in.
I'll try and get them in, yep.
Okay. The other question I have is, if you contact these 4 applicants and they just, one of them or whoever decides that they don't want to come in for the interview, what happens? Do we get to pull then from another one from the people that we've?
Right now, no, right now you'd be down to 3 candidates. If you want that option, then what you can do is do another resolution to say that you want alternates and pick those alternates.
Just keep doing that. I'm sorry.
Because that was going to be, I was going to ask that question earlier. If we have, candidate Y that says thanks with no thanks, do we then schedule 3 interviews in one night? And then I'm thinking how much you would all want me to get if I said that.
Okay, I can tell you, unless something has changed within the last 3 days since last Friday, I can tell you that I'm sure all these candidates will accept an interview. Unless something changed,
I'm curious what the procedure was.
because with the exception of, I think, about 4 out of the 18, I think I talked to everybody last week, so, in one fashion or format, or email or whatever,
I
so.
just have one other question, and this is extremely hypothetical. But say we interview all 4 and we didn't like any of them. We're back to the drawing board?
We are.
Okay.
We're back to 2 possibilities. You go back to the pool of candidates that you have and say, okay, now we want to look at we'll do a second look, or we repost, and to the drawing board to the beginning. So the board has the ability to go to wherever they want at this point.
Okay.
Jamaica sounds nice. You
I
said
don't
we
think
could
we
go
can,
anywhere we want.
yeah, within reason.
Okay, is there anything else for Ms. Miller?
Ms. Miller, I still don't think it's a little unfair still for one of the community members to be only able to ask one question and then it not go to all the other candidates. Only because how do I know there's not favoritism? How do I know? How do I know they're not picking on one particular candidate, trying to catch them off guard? This is just my personal opinion, and this is how I feel. And I'm just being honest, and I'm putting it out there to
That's a
you.
valid.
And I'm just being honest. I don't think,
That's why I
just
brought it
don't.
up, and to be honest,
That's a good point.
as chair, if a question does come up for a candidate, if there's time allocated in the other, that same question will be addressed. For that, I agree with you. Write that down.
I know, I should write.
I'm kidding, I'm smiling.
I think that's a
But,
good point.
It is absolutely correct, because how do we know somebody's not here trying to
Trying to
throw a
sabotage.
bombastic,
Yeah.
no, we want to be fair to all 4 candidates.
And I don't know what you're anticipating from your community. Very honestly, in my experience, what I've gotten is, let's say there's a question about someone's experience on technology, because we just talked about that. And the person has answered the question, and someone from the community writes a question that they want a little more detail on that. The next person is asked the same question about technology by the board, and the person sitting in the audience gets the answer that they got because, very honestly, the person answered the question better. So they don't need additional information. So there wouldn't be a need to add. So that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure what kind of, the standard operating, has been that if they want to ask a question, they have to be present. And that's what, MASB has set those parameters, basically the protocols have to be present, and that if they want it asked of each candidate, then they need to submit that. If, and
Submit
say.
it 4 times.
Or they just put at the top that they want it asked 4 times, that, or the ask of each candidate, and I just pull those out. So from that, but in terms of saying to a community member, that if you ask this question of Marie Miller when she's up here, we're gonna ask it of everybody. MASB will not do that. If the board chooses to do that, then, you would have to take a vote. I also will tell you that, because sometimes board members will say, well, what if there's one thing I want to ask? Board members are members of the community. You can submit a question at the end in writing too. The same process as you're sitting, and if something came up and you wanted that, you can submit that in writing. I look at that and pass it, and we go through the same, Very honestly, the question will come, at the end, and again, it depends on the community. But if you have 100 questions, someone's going to have to say which of those questions, how many of those are, what kind are you going to ask? And I guarantee you, if you ask 99, that 100th person will probably be upset. That's why I said I will categorize them and kind of try and get
The filter.
Yeah, and filter the questions, and I tell the people that. We'll filter those. But normally, there aren't that many questions from the community, again, because of the way the interview process goes.
So we'll have forms for them,
We will.
and then I'm just kind of mapping this out, so then they come in, they pick up if they have a question. At what point are they submitting their questions? Are they submitting them to you
Throughout
while
the
the person is interviewing, or do you
Throughout-
have a segment where you collect all of them?
No. The forms will be, if we're in an interview here, so they'd be at the back table. That would be my recommendation. They can get up in the middle of the interview and go get a form, or I'll have them in my hand also. And they kind of, so the candidate will be sitting there kind of, my recommendation is sitting kind of at an angle so their back is not to the audience completely, but really they are facing the board because that's who's doing the interviewing. Candidates know that there's going to be some movement going on, in the room while they're interviewing. That's why I said it's a tough interview. It's, you have to be focused, they have to be focused and yet have other things go on. So it will not be unusual for someone in the audience to call me over and say, you know what, can I do this? Or and I will walk around kind of looking, because I'll see them writing, and I'll look for the questions and then pick them up as we go along, or as they finish them, so that I'm actually looking to say, okay, can I categorize these, or, where is that movement from? Where they will and again, the forms for the comment forms will also be back at that back table. Either I or the president will call for those forms to be turned into the board secretary, at the end of the interview, so that in that 15-minute period of time, people in the audience would have that time also to finish up any comments or whatever they have on their sheets, if they would choose to submit those.
Okay.
Anything else from Ms. Miller? Thank you again for all your hard work. And board members, I want to, thank you again. I know this has been a huge amount of homework and reading and thinking and pondering, and we're entering the home stretch. So hopefully a couple of weeks we'll have some finality to the situation. Next item on the agenda is other. There is nothing under other. So item number 7 is communications and expressions from the public. Did anybody have anything they wanted to address? Hearing none. Questions and concerns of board members. Mrs. Bowles?
None.
Thank you. None?
We had our MASB Awards dinner last week, which was, we had a really good time. Ms. Bowles, myself, Ms. Beard, and Mr. McLaughlin went, and we actually were awarded the honor board. So all of our board members have taken at least their 100 levels of MASB courses, so that they can be better educated board members. So we had a good time.
Based on last year.
Yeah, well, yeah, based on last year. But I was going to say, Ms. Bowles is new to the board, so she still has some time to get it in, although the pressure's on. But we had a really good time.
Thank you.
No. Did I miss anything, Ms. Mitchell, on the? Okay. Okay, you're welcome. No, I'm good.
Nope, I'm good.
Thank you. The only other announcement for our listening friends, April 29th, it's a Monday, 6 p.m., Progressive Hall. The Romulus Rotary is sponsoring a banquet to recognize our state championship basketball team. Tickets are available from any Rotarian, or if you contact the superintendent's office at 532-1610. It's area code 734-532-1610. Tickets are $20 apiece, and I believe advance purchase is required for the dinner. With that, the chair will entertain a motion.
I had one other thing, as you said that. The Romulus High School Band Boosters, well, actually, it's band and choir now.
Oh, yes, the spaghetti
We are
dinner.
having a spaghetti dinner, and it is April 25th at 6 p.m. at the high school cafeteria, and our jazz band will be playing as entertainment. And the ticket price is $7. If you'd like to purchase tickets, you can either get them from me or Ms. Garrison, who is our band booster president. And I wanted to say, it's
April
at the high
25th.
school.
High school.
April.
25th.
And the reason we have our spaghetti dinner is we have our scholarships. We give away 3 scholarships to our graduating seniors who apply with an application and essay, and then they're judged and awarded. And so they're awarded $250 scholarships. And so it helps with books. And so if you'd like,
Absolutely.
again, if you'd like to purchase tickets, you can let either myself or Ms. Garrison know, and we can get those to you. And that's it.
Okay. With that, chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's on a Thursday.
It's been moved by Ms. Buckley,
Support.
supported by Ms. Funderburg. Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion, meeting is adjourned, 7:45. Thank you.